Iphigenia was a truly remarkable princess, born into immense luxury and privilege as the daughter of King Agamemnon and Queen Clytemnestra. She spent her days surrounded by the finest things in life, and was doted on by her parents and their royal subjects. But one day, everything changed. Her father's actions in hunting and killing one of the sacred stags of the goddess Artemis brought down her wrath upon the family. It was a dark and terrible punishment that the goddess demanded, the sacrifice of Iphigenia herself. Agamemnon was beside himself with grief, but knew that he could not refuse Artemis. And so, poor Iphigenia was taken from her beloved homeland to the barren plain of Aulis, where she was to be offered up to the gods as penance for her father's crime. It was a tragic end for a young woman who should have lived a long and happy life. But in some versions of the story, Iphigenia's fate was not sealed so quickly. Artemis, moved by the girl's plight, intervened on her behalf at the last minute. In these versions, Iphigenia was saved from certain death, but at a great cost. She was exiled from her home and forced to journey to a far-off land called the Taurians, where she met her brother Orestes. Despite the many hardships she faced, Iphigenia remained a popular figure in Greek mythology. Her story was a stark reminder of the power of the gods and the consequences of human actions. Her tragic tale was told and retold, her name whispered reverently by those who knew of her immense suffering. In Greek mythology, Iphigenia was a tragic figure whose story is replete with twists and turns. It all starts when the Greek fleet, led by Agamemnon, prepares to invade Troy but offends Artemis by killing a deer in a holy grove. The goddess punishes the Greeks by preventing their ships from sailing. In order to pacify Artemis, Calchas advises Agamemnon to sacrifice his daughter Iphigenia. Under pressure from other Greek commanders, Agamemnon agrees to this terrible plan. Iphigenia and her mother Clytemnestra are taken to Aulis, where they learn of Iphigenia's fate. Some versions of the tale state that she was unaware of her impending sacrifice until the last moment, while others suggest that Artemis spared Iphigenia by substituting her with a deer or goat, thereby transforming her into the goddess Hecate. In other accounts, she marries the immortalized Achilles on the island of Leuc. However, the sacrifice of Iphigenia is one of the reasons why Clytemnestra and Aegisthus plotted to murder Agamemnon. In Euripides' play, Iphigenia at Aulis, Menelaus persuades Agamemnon to comply with Calchas' advice out of a sense of duty to the Greeks. Iphigenia and Clytemnestra implore Agamemnon to spare Iphigenia's life, but their pleas fall on deaf ears. In the end, Iphigenia willingly sacrifices herself to appease Artemis and aid Greece. In another play by Euripides, Iphigenia in Taurus, Orestes and Pylades are taken captive by the Tauri, who have a tradition of sacrificing all Greek strangers to Artemis. Iphigenia, who is the priestess of Artemis, prepares to perform the sacrifice. At first, Iphigenia and Orestes do not recognize each other. Instead, Iphigenia offers to let Orestes go if he will take a letter back to Greece for her. Eventually, Pylades agrees to do this, and the three of them escape to safety, carrying the image of Artemis with them. Athena instructs Orestes to take the image to the town of Hale, where he must erect a temple for Artemis Tauropolos. According to some accounts, Iphigenia becomes the priestess of Artemis at Broron, where she ultimately dies. The people of Taurus were known for their devotion to the goddess Artemis. According to ancient Greek sources, Artemis had saved Iphigenia from being sacrificed by her father. It was said that she had taken the girl away and transported her to Taurus, where she made her immortal and put a stag in place of her on the altar. In Taurus, Iphigenia became a priestess at the temple of Artemis. However, there were different versions of the story. In Euripides' plays, the people in Taurus worshipped both Artemis and Iphigenia. Other versions of the myth suggested that Iphigenia had been transformed into Hecate or that her brother, Orestes, had helped her steal an image of Artemis. The myth had a profound impact on various cultures and traditions over the years. The Spartans, for example, would whip a male victim in front of a sacred image of Artemis instead of sacrificing a virgin, while the Taurians performed sacrifices of bulls and virgins in honor of the goddess. Despite the discrepancies in the various versions of the story, the enduring appeal of Artemis and the tale of Iphigenia continue to captivate and intrigue people to this day. The story of Iphigenia began with her father, Agamemnon, receiving an order from the gods to sacrifice his own daughter. Agamemnon was torn between his duty to the gods and his love for his daughter, but ultimately decided to follow through with the sacrifice in order to ensure the success of his voyage to Troy. On the day of the sacrifice, little Iphigenia was held over an altar by Odysseus while Agamemnon performed the ritual. Clytemnestra, Iphigenia's mother, hovered nearby, and Achilles stood next to Odysseus, all pleading for the life of the young girl. Despite their pleas, the sacrifice was carried out, and Iphigenia's life was lost. The aftermath of the sacrifice was not without consequences. Clytemnestra, furious at her husband for sacrificing their daughter, plotted and succeeded in killing him upon his return from the Trojan War. The tragedy of Iphigenia continued to haunt Agamemnon's family for generations, with their story becoming a cautionary tale of the dangers of obedience and sacrifice. Despite the variations in the retellings of Iphigenia's story, there remains a consistent theme of sacrifice and duty. The story is a reminder of the lengths that humans are willing to go to achieve their goals, and the emotional toll that it takes on them and those around them.
Do you want to explore more Greek mythology stories? Who do you want to see featured next? Subscribe and leave a comment below to let me know. I'll see you in the next video.